Welcome to the Amber Archive. There's a sound that defines the very essence of Gothic terror. It is not the scream nor the howl. It is the simple, heavy knock upon a chamber door late at night in the middle of a storm. And when that door is opened, there is nothing, only darkness. This is the world of Edgar Allan Poe. And today we are not just analyzing a poem, we are descending into a mind. We are exploring the single most famous poem in American literature, The Raven. Published in 1845, The Raven was an instant sensation. It made Poe a household name. But why? What is it about this narrative of a grieving student and a single, stubborn bird that has haunted the popular imagination for nearly 2 centuries? The answer is that The Raven is not a ghost story. It is a terrifyingly precise psychological case study of a man's descent into his own private hell. Poe perfects what we call the psychological Gothic. The horror isn't in the monster, the horror is in the mind that perceives it. The poem is an anatomy of grief, obsession, and the horrifying capacity of the human mind for self-torture. It is a journey into madness, and it all begins with the single chilling word, Nevermore. Our story opens on a dreary midnight in a bleak December. The setting is crucial. It is the dead of night, the dead of winter. The world outside is cold and stormed by wind. This external chaos perfectly mirrors the narrator's internal state. Life, warmth, and light have vanished. Inside, our narrator, a young scholar, is weak and weary. He is poring over his books, forgotten lore. He's not reading for pleasure. He's desperately seeking a surcease of sorrow for his lost love, the rare and radiant maiden named Lenore. He is, in short, a man trapped between worlds. He's in his study, a room of logic and reason, his books, but he is haunted by the irrational world of memory and loss, Lenore. He is trying to reason his way out of grief, but it is failing. His study, a sanctuary of the mind, has become a prison. The books, his tools of logic, offer no comfort. They are forgotten lore, useless against the primal force of his grief. This is when the tapping begins. First, it's a gentle rapping on his chamber door. He dismisses it. "'Tis some visitor," he mutters, and nothing more. He opens the door to darkness there, and nothing more. He stands peering into the blackness, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. He whispers the name Lenore, and the echo whispers it back. This is a critical psychological moment. He is not a passive victim. He is already hoping for a supernatural event. His mind is looking for a sign, for any connection to the lost world he craves. He is disappointed that it is nothing more. He is yearning for an answer from the void. He returns to his room, and the tapping begins again, this time somewhat louder, at his window lattice. He tells himself it is merely the wind. He flings open the shutter, and with many a flirt and flutter, in steps the raven. This is the central event. The raven is not a dove, the symbol of peace, nor a nightingale, a symbol of song. It is a raven. In mythology, the raven is a bird of ill omen, a trickster, a messenger from dark worlds, a creature that feeds on the dead. It is a ghastly, grim, and ancient bird. But Poe's raven is almost comical at first. It is stately, with mien of lord or lady. It doesn't flit or flutter, it perches. It lands on a bust of Pallas, the statue of Pallas Athena, the Greek goddess of wisdom and reason, sitting right above the narrator's door. This is the poem's central conflict, visualized in a single, powerful image. The dark, irrational, ominous, and perhaps demonic bird, the raven, is now sitting on top of logic and wisdom, Pallas. The stage is set for a battle for the narrator's mind. The raven's blackness casts a shadow over the pallid, pale, lifeless bust of reason. This symbolism is profound. The narrator's grief, the raven, has now become the lens through which he sees all of logic and reason. His intellect is now subservient to his sorrow. Pallas is pallid and cold stone. It represents a form of reason that is useless in the face of raw emotional loss. The narrator's books, his lore, are silent. His goddess Pallas is silent. The only thing in the room that speaks is the creature of pure instinct and darkness. The irrational has found its voice, while reason sits mute. The narrator, amused by this serious blackbird, asks its name, and the raven speaks its one and only word, Nevermore. At first, the narrator is astonished but still rational. He muses that the bird must have learned this word from some unhappy master, whom disaster followed fast and followed faster. He tries to explain the word logically. It's just a word, learned by rote with no meaning. This it is, and nothing more. He is still clinging to the bust of Pallas, trying to find a logical framework for an irrational event, but the word itself is a hook. Nevermore. It is the sound of finality. It is the sound of a door slamming shut. It is the sound of no. It is the perfect one-word summary of his grief for Lenore. The word is a plosive sound, sharp and percussive, like the tapping on the door. It is an interruption. It is the end. Here, the poem's psychological genius begins. The narrator understands that the bird is just a bird. He knows it only has one word. He explicitly says he knows this, and yet he begins to torture himself. He sits down, wheeling a velvet cushion in front of the bird, staring at it, linking fancy unto fancy. He begins to ask questions. He no longer asks if the bird will speak, but what its one-word answer will mean in response to his own specific, agonizing questions. He is, in effect, building his own trap. He is willingly engaging in psychological self-mutilation. This is the core of the poem's horror. It is not an external monster. It is an internal one. The narrator chooses to interpret the bird's meaningless repetition as an oracle, a divine judgment. Why does he do this? Why would a person actively seek out pain? Because the ambiguous state of grief, the sorrow for the lost Lenore, is a state of suspension. It is a void. The narrator is desperate for any certainty, even if that certainty is damnation. The dull, constant ache of not knowing is worse than the sharp, definitive, crushing pain of knowing all hope is lost. He wants to hit rock bottom, and he uses the bird as the hammer. He transforms the bird into the prophet of his own despair. His first question is a vague hope. He asks if he will ever find respite, and nepenthe from his memories of Lenore. Nepenthe, in Greek myth, was a drug of forgetfulness. He is asking, will I ever forget? Will this pain ever stop? The raven, as it must, says, Nevermore. The narrator, now agitated, escalates the bird. He cries, is a thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil. He's no longer asking for forgetfulness, but for a sign of divine comfort. He asks, Is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. This is a biblical reference asking, is there healing? Is there any comfort in religion? Any hope for my soul? Is there a higher purpose to this suffering? The raven, a black prophet on the white bust of reason, says, Nevermore. Now the narrator is desperate. He has been denied earthly forgetfulness, nepenthe, and spiritual comfort, Gilead. He makes one final frantic plea. He asks about the afterlife. He cries, tell this soul with sorrow laden if, within the distant Eden or heaven, it shall clasp a sainted maiden whom the angels name Lenore. He is asking in plain terms, will I ever see her again, even in heaven? This is the question upon which his entire sanity rests. He knows the bird's answer. He knows what is coming, and he asks it anyway. He needs to hear the final definitive confirmation of his despair. The raven's answer is the final nail in his psychological coffin. Nevermore. The spell is broken. The game is over. The narrator explodes in a rage. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore, he screams. Leave no black plume as a token. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Take thy beak from out my heart. This last line is critical. Take thy beak from out my heart. The bird is no longer just on the statue. In the narrator's mind, its beak is physically inside his heart, a constant, pecking, agonizing presence. He orders the bird to leave, and the bird does not move. This is the final horrifying realization of the poem. The bird is not a visitor. It is not a temporary storm. It is a permanent resident. The narrator, in his grief, did not just encounter the raven. He summoned it. He opened the window and let it in. He projected his own despair onto this creature until it became the perfect, unchanging, external symbol of that despair. The bird is the physical manifestation of the word nevermore. The poem's final stanza is one of the most chilling in all of literature. The narrator, now completely broken, describes his new reality. He speaks in the present tense, implying this state is eternal. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. He has lost the battle. The bird of unreason, the raven, has conquered the goddess of reason, Pallas. The light of the lamp, his own small consciousness, now only serves to create the shadow of the demon. The shadow is not just on the floor, it is a shadow on the floor of his mind, a permanent darkness. And then, the last two lines, and my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. He is not just sad, he is damned. He is not just grieving, he is fully merged with his grief. His soul is now trapped in the bird's shadow, a permanent stain on the floor of his rational mind. He has become a prisoner in his own study, his intellect defeated. The final nevermore is not spoken by the bird, but by the narrator himself. He has adopted the bird's language. He has become the raven. The narrator of The Raven did not go mad because a bird talked to him. He went mad because he needed the bird to talk. He was so desperate for an answer, any answer, that he found a creature that could only give one, and he molded his questions around it until he had proof of his own eternal damnation. Poe's genius was not in writing a scary story about a bird. His genius was in showing us how the human mind, when consumed by grief and loss, can become its own willing executioner. We can become so obsessed with our own Lenore, our own lost past, that we actively seek out the ravens of the world to confirm our worst fear, that the pain will never end. The horror of The Raven is not that the bird says nevermore. The horror is that, deep down, the narrator wanted it to. Thank you for joining us in the Amber Archive. If this analysis of Poe's masterpiece resonated with you, subscribe for more deep dives into the classics that shaped our world. And let us know in the comments, what raven of your own making have you had to battle? Until next time, remain curious.